Monkey.
Now, Jake Paul defeated Anderson Silva on points. Now, I felt like this was an interesting fight, and I believe this was a great development fight for Jake Paul. Effectively, Anderson Silva is a middle-aged man, so we don't need to get too ahead of ourselves. This is a very old guy, but he's someone who has experience within martial arts, and we did see some skills, some good head movement, and some decent fundamentals. One glaring problem for Anderson Silva in this fight is his extremely low punch volume. I felt like there were instances where he was walking Jake Paul down, where he could have doubled, if not tripled, the jab and then followed through with a straight shot, but he didn't do that. When he was walking Jake Paul down, he didn't put him under enough pressure. Jake Paul, he struggled to deal with Anderson Silva's uppercuts on the inside because they were just landing throughout the fight from round 1 to round 8. So that's somewhere he can improve on, because it could be argued that in that fight, Anderson Silva actually got the better of Jake Paul in the inside. Where Jake Paul does really well is he lands these really looping shots, and not only does he land these looping shots, he throws combinations. So he'll, throw one to the body or throw two shots to the body, and then he'll come upstairs. But one thing I don't like that Jake Paul did in this fight is he would often cock his right hand back, and you could just see he was loading up on a big shot with the right hand. But Jake Paul showed good punch resistance in this fight because he got hit by a couple of good shots. So Jake Paul is definitely not chinny. He's got a good chin in my opinion. And he showed decent level defense. He really struggled on the inside to defend Anderson Silva's uppercuts, but the uppercut can be a difficult shot to defend against. We see some pro boxers who just always struggle to defend certain shots. When you look at someone like a Dylan White, he's been knocked out by the uppercut. You get against Tyson Fury, against Anthony Joshua, and against Alexander Povetkin. He's never developed the ability to defend uppercuts. So Jake Paul might always be weak in that area. It just all comes down to biomechanics. Everyone's got different biomechanics, and there are certain things fighters can and cannot do. And one of those things might be defending the uppercut. So yeah, definitely needs to go back to the drawing board and see how he can improve that. Now, I suspected Anderson Silva would try to apply more pressure in the last round. I saw that coming, but he was too eager. Throughout the fight even, Anderson Silva was making Jake Paul miss. Jake Paul was often out of range, and Jake Paul fought a lot of the fight off the ropes, essentially doing a rope-a-dope, trying to, dodge punches and then come back. But the problem with Anderson Silva is when he did make Jake Paul miss, he didn't make Jake Paul pay. In comparison to Jake Paul, when he made Anderson Silva miss, he made Anderson Silva pay. And for me, defense is one of the most important attributes in boxing. We see that, from the last generation, the best boxer was who? Floyd Mayweather. He had the best defense. I believe that the most skilled boxer today is Shakur Stevenson. It's not a coincidence that he's the best defensive fighter, out of the current active fighters. Defense goes a long way in making a good boxer, and Anderson Silva neglected defense in the last round, and he got caught. He got clipped with a decent shot from Jake Paul. He got up. It wasn't a devastating punch. It was more of a balanced knockdown, or a flash knockdown, if you want to call it that. He was able to recover and apply some more pressure. By that time, he was extremely desperate, and Jake Paul knew that, listen, I only have to survive, because with this knockdown, I've won the fight, because the fight was a very, very close fight. It was very difficult to score. A lot of the rounds were very competitive, but the knockdown definitely gave Jake Paul the edge. So yeah, I'm not going to say disappointed. I actually felt like it was a very entertaining fight. I was very satisfied with the fight, actually. Anderson Silva did a lot better than I thought he'd do. I actually thought that Jake Paul would KO Anderson Silva, in the mid to early rounds. But Anderson Silva did show some, decent fundamentals. He just didn't really land the jab as much as I'd like to see. However, I believe that Anderson Silva was a little bit wary in this fight. He was a bit worried of essentially getting countered by Jake Paul, because you could see Jake Paul has a lot more speed than Anderson Silva. and he's a lot more active. You know, Anderson Silva would have spots where he was essentially inactive. He was throwing little to no punches, where Jake Paul was constantly active throughout the fight. So good performance from Jake Paul. He's going to develop a lot, guys. I'm telling you, experiencing pressure. Anderson Silva is a very unorthodox fighter. He was switch hitting. He's a southpaw. I believe he may have even had a superior reach to Jake Paul. Jake Paul hasn't fought many people with, who are taller than him and who have superior reach. But I feel like I believe I didn't really see the stats before the fight because I just kind of tuned in just before the fight started. So I do believe that Anderson Silva actually does have a reach advantage. Though if I'm wrong, you can correct me in the comment section down below. So let me know what you guys think. Were you impressed with Jake Paul's performance? I was certainly impressed defensively. I feel like there are a few areas he can pattern up in terms of his offense, though I did really like the combinations when he went to the body and then he followed up upstairs with a second or third punch. That's very important. However, I felt like he was a little bit repetitive with that. He was doing that too often. But it's important to be a fighter who can throw punches and bunches and have pretty good offense, and Jake Paul has that. I would like to see Jake Paul fight someone who has around the same height and reach as him and similar experience, but someone who can be active, throughout the entire fight. I would really like to see the Jake Paul-Tommy Fury fight now, if I'm being honest. I believe they're around the same height. I think Tommy Fury is about 6 foot, 6'1", and I believe that's Jake Paul's height as well. I think Tommy Fury might actually have a superior reach, however, I'm not sure by that. But I just feel like you've got two novices, it would be interesting to see Jake Paul fight someone who can stay active, someone who's got, a decent VO2 max, someone who's got good lung capacity. When you fight these older guys, they can't be as active. Anderson Silva, he couldn't throw high volume of punches because he's a middle-aged man. He's pushing 50 years old. But it was still a great development fight for Jake Paul. His team are moving him along very, very well. They're not rushing him. So credit to Jake Paul's team. Once again, congratulations to Jake Paul on his victory against Anderson Silva. It will be interesting to see who he fights next. The Tommy Fury fight might never ever happen. But, it is what it is. We can see Jake Paul in other good fights. There's many good fights we could see him in. Alright guys, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Peace.